For the past 4 years, I pulled off what most people consider impossible, working 3 jobs simultaneously without getting caught. And I did this not by having some superhuman work ethic or tech wizardry. Instead, I did it by mastering something far more powerful: the psychology of perception. Master your perception and you can control what people expect from you. The result, I earned 3 paychecks while most people grind away for 1. By leveraging these 7 proven psychological principles that make overemployment not just possible, but surprisingly easy. Now get these principles wrong and you will be exposed, fired, and potentially even blacklisted from your industry. But get them right and you could be making life-changing money, potentially working less than you were with 1 job. Let me show you how to become invisible in plain sight. In week 3 of juggling 2 jobs, I had just started my overemployed journey. I hadn't yet gotten the hang of managing my calendars and I missed a meeting. Now I was terrified. I'd expected to be pinged, brought into a meeting, and promptly fired. But what happened? Absolutely nothing. Nobody noticed. That's the spotlight effect, discovered by Thomas Gilovich and colleagues at Cornell in 1999. They ran a study where they had a student wear an embarrassing t-shirt into a group full of strangers. And after they quizzed the students, asking them how many people they thought noticed that t-shirt. And almost all of them answered 50 to 100% of the people. But then when they asked the strangers how many people actually noticed, only an average of 23% of them saw the shirt. We tend to massively overestimate how much people pay attention to our actions and our mistakes. Overemployment isn't possible because you're hiding, it's possible because nobody's actually looking. Now, I used to think getting high praise at work was a good thing, until I learned of the trap of expectations. This happened during an end-of-year review at my first job. My manager made a comment something to the effect of, "We know you can do more, you were such a superstar when you got here." Now, she was referencing when I first started working at Merrill, I was working 8 to 8 just to prove to everyone how good I was. But what my boss didn't know was 2 months before this review, I'd gotten my second job and scaled back my workload. The only problem was her expectations were still sky high of me. Now in 1968, Robert Rosenthal and Leonore Jacobson found something interesting when they told teachers that a select few students had been identified as late bloomers and their academic performance was about to skyrocket. Now, by the end of the year, those students identified all vastly outperformed their peers. But here's the twist. Those students were chosen at random. They got better grades not because they were smarter, but because the teacher expected more. That's the Pygmalion Effect. But the reverse is also true. If people expect less from you, they don't push you, they don't challenge you, and they don't overload you. That's the Golem effect, and it is the bedrock of overemployment. Now, lucky me, a few months after that performance review, my boss actually left. So I made sure that with my new boss to set the expectations right. I would ask questions that I already knew the answer to, always acted slightly unsure, and made sure not to be the expert on anything. The result, I got just enough work to stay employed, but never enough to get overwhelmed. Lower their expectations and you will lower the demands on your time. About a year into my overemployment journey, I was basically ghosting my second job. I was still doing my core workload, but it was so small that I was sure people would find out. But no one did. Not once was I questioned about how little I was doing. And that's because people prefer things to stay the same even when there are better alternatives. And this was discovered by 2 economists in 1988 when they ran a test of people's investments, giving them multiple different options for company stock. The only difference being that one of them said that they currently owned it. And it turned out that a vast majority of them chose that stock that they already owned, even when there were alternatives that had higher returns. And corporate inertia works the same way. If you've been busy in the past, people assume that you're going to be busy in the future. And you can lean into this bias. Don't ask for more work, show up, do the bare minimum, don't make any noise, and don't stand out. Consistency, not excellence, is your shield. Now, those first 3 principles are powerful, but what about those unavoidable team projects? As soon as I got my 3rd job, I could tell that the vibe was different. It was much more team-oriented. There were group deliverables, we shared credit, and we collaborated on absolutely everything. Now, in the beginning, I thought this was horrible. People would find out that I'm trying to do the bare minimum and kick me to the curb. But I quickly noticed something fascinating. The more people were involved, the less I actually had to do. This is social loafing, first studied by Max Ringelmann in 1913. And he observed this in a tug-of-war game where people actually pulled less than their maximum power output when they were with a group. So at work, I strategically would try to get onto the projects with the most people possible. And the group will naturally fill in the gaps that you are leaving. And this is great because from the get-go, people will naturally be pulling less, meaning their expectations of you and everyone else will be lower. And in overemployment, onboarding is everything. First impressions matter. And one of my favorite ways to alter people's perception of me is the 7-38-55 rule. In 1967, a researcher at UCLA, Albert Morabian, came out with an interesting study. In it, he said that 7% of what we actually interpret comes from the words people are saying. Then another 55% comes from their body language, and the rest from the tone of voice. Now at work, I was remote, so I couldn't tap into body language, and instead I used my tone of voice. At work, I would raise the pitch of my voice ever so slightly so that people would think I'm more junior. Because the truth is, people make snap judgments based on how we sound. Lower pitched voices are thought of as more authoritative, confident, and knowledgeable, whereas higher pitched voices are thought of as more youthful, harmless, and naive. And as a result of this, I think I got assigned less work. Now, I can't provide any data to support that, but by adjusting people's expectations down, I was able to juggle the 3 jobs. Now, this isn't lying, it's what I call tactical tonality. Okay, but at some point, we're gonna need to deliver some work. And that's where one of my favorite principles comes in: effort justification. See, there was one deliverable, a slide deck. Could have finished it in 20 minutes, but instead I took a couple days and then delivered it with a note that said, "Sorry, the data was jumbled, this took longer than expected." And when I got the reply, I was a little bit shocked. The response: "Appreciate the effort, this looks great." And that's effort justification, a concept from Leon Festinger's broader theory on cognitive dissonance. People tend to value outcomes more when we perceive that they took more effort to generate. This is also the same reason why we value goods more when they cost more. So at work, I stopped being a guy who would just whip things up, and I would strategically make work look more labor intensive, spending a little more time in the design elements, but then delivering it significantly later. When something would take me an hour, I would deliver it in a few days. And when people asked for estimates, I would always at least double what I thought was possible. And this is another key, to always ask for deadlines, because it can usually take a lot longer than you initially think. And obviously, when I would finish things early, I would hold on to them and deliver them later. And the best part is, it's a win-win, because when I finally delivered the thing, people would appreciate it more because they thought that I put more effort into it. Now, this sounds horrible. Remember, for overemployment, we are targeting giant, antiquated companies that are filled with red tape. People are used to things taking a while, and they will appreciate it when things are done correctly. So we're not actually getting in the way as much as it sounds. But what about when things inevitably go wrong? This next principle will be your safety net. So when things go wrong, I always try to take the blame first. And 9 times out of 10, someone will jump in to support me and say, "Oh, that's not your fault, it was X, Y, or Z instead." And the reason is, making people like you is critical for overemployment. Taking blames for others, expressing gratitude liberally, and acknowledging people's contributions works like magic. Colleagues will defend you, managers will trust you, and everyone will assume that your intentions are good even when things go wrong. And many things could go wrong, which could easily be avoided if you watch my most recent video, The 10 Commandments of Overemployment. and how to avoid getting caught. As always, subscribe for more tips on how to work smarter, not harder, and thanks for watching.